Hey everyone, this is my run on Dimensions and Transcendence Tier 6 in DFFOO global version of the game, and in this run I'll be bringing along Auron, Maria and Caius with base BT and LD. The Reckoning stage can be quite challenging in particular because first of all it is a Lufenia Plus stage, so it has all the Lufenia Plus brave resistances and brave gain reductions, but beyond that both wave 1 and wave 2 also has additional mechanics on top that further boosts the boss's defenses. So for example, in wave 1 when the Argent Officiants are levitating, they gain additional brave damage resistances, and on wave 2, if depending on the number of debuffs the bosses have, the less debuffs they are, the stronger they actually get, and all these bonuses again stack on top of the Lufenia Plus stat changes. So coming a bit to the party and the reason why I chose this party, it actually took me quite a few different tries with different party members, but the reason why this party in particular works very well is, first of all, you have Auron and Maria that actually helps to protect your party. So Auron will cover tank for the entire party, and Maria's traps will gravity shave and heal the entire party before the bosses do any attacks, and this keeps out most of the danger from the fight. The other good thing also is that both of them together represent somewhat decent often damage, so Auron will counter and Maria traps will trigger each time an enemy takes a turn. And very interestingly enough, Auron's counter lands a 20% HP damage up debuff, and Maria's traps also provides another 20% HP damage up debuff for a total of 40%, and this helps you to at least push some damage through. So at 79%, the Lufenia Orb will appear on wave 1, and you need to land 8 debuffs in one turn in order to uptick the orb by 8. And that's where Caius comes in. So just using his Bahabun Eye Plus will land exactly 8 debuffs and will very easily handle the orb on wave 1. Now even with Auron and Maria protecting the team, you still want to be very careful on wave 1. In fact, I actually think wave 1 is a bit more dangerous than wave 2 in terms of the HP damage attacks. So on wave 1, anytime the boss is targeting all, they will use some sort of HP attack, and the version of the attack changes depending on whether they are grounded or whether they are levitating in the air. The more dangerous one it will be when they are levitating, because that's when they will use Globated Crush Plus. So right here is where the Globated Crush Plus is coming in. Now it deals 0 damage here because I have quite a lot of debuffs on the bosses and they were at a broken state when it uses the attack. Globated Crush Plus doesn't do any brave hits or brave damage hits. Instead, the boss gets a massive brave gain, and it will unload this brave onto your party in the form of a 100% HP attack. So for example, if it has 20,000 brave, everyone in your party will take 20,000 HP damage. Needless to say, it can one-shot you if you allow it to gain a lot of brave. At 49% also, if bosses are grounded, they will automatically levitate, and they will cap out their brave as well, which will be in excess of 100,000 brave, which means that you do need to break them, otherwise you'll be eating 100,000 plus HP damage Globated Crush attacks. The way to shave off that amount of damage if you're using Caius is to simply use Caius's LD. So right here, his LD will instant break the enemy regardless of how much brave it has. So once more again, I've taken 0 damage from the Globated Crush Plus attack, Now once using Globated Crush, the bosses will ground themselves again and they'll lose the additional boost to brave damage resistance that they get when they were levitating. So this is where you quickly try to squeeze in as much damage as you can before they start levitating again. When they are grounded, they can also use another form of AoE HP damage, and that comes in the form of Flare Star, which Boss A is about to use. That attack is a typical AoE Brave plus HP attack, but the Brave damage hurts quite a lot, and you will take quite a bit of HP damage, so you do need to make sure that you can tank the attack as well, or you risk someone dying. Now the bosses are nearly dead here, but the other drawback is that if you look at the debuffs, Maria's trap is about to expire on both bosses, and for that reason I decided to just pop Caius BT mode here. The main idea is I want to capitalize on Maria's debuff while it's still up, and I really don't want to waste a precious LD from Maria just to refresh her traps here. I would rather save all her remaining LD for wave 2. So in reference, I used only one of Maria's LD for wave 1, and I'm saving the rest of it for wave 2 because it will come in very handy for the wave 2 bosses. Okay, so coming to wave 2, wave 2 is all about landing as many debuffs as you can, because the less debuffs the bosses have, the stronger they are, and at 0 or 1 debuff only, they actually get a 200% resistance to brave and HP damage, and you'll literally be hitting for 0 damage. So try to pile on debuffs. The thing to take note though is that just at 89%, they will automatically cleanse all debuffs. So at the start of the fight, you might want to hold off on limited use debuffs. So for example, Maria's LD is a very nice debuff, but since they'll cleanse it at 89%, I'm actually holding off on using her LD until 89% so I don't waste that precious debuff. For that reason also, you want to try to damage both bosses as evenly as possible, so that you can trigger the cleansing at almost the same time and can easily reapply debuffs together. Okay, so I've hit the 89% trigger and the bosses have cleansed all their debuffs. This is one of the dangerous parts of the fight. So you can see here, because they had 0 debuffs, they had a 200% brave and HP damage resistance, and I'm literally doing no damage. You want to quickly try to reapply as many of the frame debuffs as possible. So on Caius' turn, you definitely want to use his Bahamut Eye Plus to land his 4 frame debuffs. And because I've hit 89%, so this is where I use Maria's LD to land her trap debuff as well, and this helps to also protect my party against the boss's attacks. Very interestingly, what I noticed for wave 2 is that if the bosses doesn't have any brave at all on their turn, they will always just alternate between Flower Bomb and Ren. So Ren will just do a brave attack and buff the bosses. Flower Bomb will also do a brave attack and heal the bosses as well, give the bosses HP regen. So which means that as long as you have Auron and Maria doing off-turn damage and shaving all the bosses brave, or having Caius do his instant break through Doom, the bosses will actually never do any HP attack. So the whole fight of wave 2 just becomes sort of like a punching bag fest, where you're just trying to slog through all their HP and minimize the amount of healing that they can do. So one note about the frame debuffs with this party comp, the one frame debuff that is not as reliable as the others is Maria's EX, because her EX doesn't charge as quickly, so you run into situations like this where you can only land 6 frame debuffs and you have 2 debuff slots still open. At this point, what you can do is to use Banishing Blade with Auron instead of his Purgatory attack. His Banishing Blade, although doesn't land melee in peril, it does land 2 generic debuffs, I believe Initial Brave and Max Brave down, and that will at least help you fill up the debuff slots to 8. While it's true that you don't have the melee in peril, and the melee in peril is the more valuable debuff, this at least buys you time and can help you displace the HP regen buff on the bosses to reduce the amount of healing that they get. At 59%, the bosses will once again cleanse all their debuffs, so this can be a little bit dangerous as well. What I'm thinking here is whether should I pop my summon or not. Luckily it is on Caius' turn, so I could technically just use his Eye of Bahamut Plus to immediately land 4 frame debuffs, but I decided against it and went for the summon instead, because I just wanted to have the time to land all my debuffs again before the boss's next turn. If you decide not to pop your summon, with just 4 frame debuffs, the bosses will warp their turns after every action that you take, which may not be such big a deal because you have Auron protecting you, but it can be quite annoying, especially if they have the HP regen buff. They can heal up quite a bit due to the turn warping mechanics. So by popping summon here, I allow myself to have free turns applying all the debuffs and preventing them from warping turns once again. Once you've passed the debuff cleansing at 59% and you've managed to reapply all your debuffs, the rest of the fight is pretty straightforward with this party. As long as you have Auron protecting you and Maria's trap active, you can't really die from anything in this fight, because the bosses will get broken by Doom as well. after every single turn. So for the remainder of the fight, it's just a matter of debuff management. The key thing is you want to try as much as possible to displace the HP regen buff just by using Auron's S1 or S2 to reapply his generic debuffs. The less turns they have while HP regen is up, the less life they can heal, and the faster you can quickly finish the fight. The other thing to consider also is at this point of the game, they have all the Lufenia Plus stat boosts, and so they become rather tanky. You can try to get around this by having Maria do her AA to provide a little bit more buff to the party's attack, or you can use your remaining call abilities, so Iroha or even Cait Sith's base call or LD call if you still have it, does provide quite a significant boost to the party's damage. The other danger at this point of the stage is that you can be somewhat running low on some of the key skills. So Caius's Eye of Bahamut Plus is limited use, and you do need it for the 4-frame debuffs, especially Doom. And very importantly, Maria's LD is extremely precious here because it's the only way you can land her LD trap, which protects you as well as increases HP damage done by 20%. So you want to really space out her LD as much as possible and only use it once her trap has expired or is at 1 count to make the most use out of it. Other than that, as you can see, I'm just trying to always displace debuffs with Auron, and as long as you fill up the debuff slots, the fight is really not an issue. You'll still be doing somewhat decent damage, and because Auron and Maria is still doing off-turn damage as well, overall you should be able to complete the fight without too much of an issue. A little bit about other options for this stage. If you have Yuffie with her LD, she is quite a fantastic option in this tier. The only drawback of using Yuffie is that her damage is somewhat lacking at this point of the game, so you do need to pair her with very strong damage dealers to make up for it. However, Yuffie will counter majority of the mechanics. So for example, her debuff from her EX will prevent the Brave gains on wave 1 when the bosses are levitating, and will actually make Globated Crush plus attack on wave 1 deal 0 damage. And she also lands 8 debuffs in total just by using her S2, so she can uptick the orb on wave 1 all by herself, and she can fill up all the debuff slots on wave 2 just by using her S2, which will cripple the bosses. Jack is a very good damage dealer overall for this stage of the game. Golbez BT Plus is recently featured, and his BT Aura will help you deal with both wave 1 and wave 2 Brave gains mechanics. The only drawback with using Golbez is that his Dark Imperil is not framed, and on wave 2, since the bosses buff themselves every turn, it is quite likely that you will push off his Dark Imperil debuff. Lastly, if you still have Setzer free at this point, Setzer is also quite an excellent choice here. For one thing, his rainbow damage will help you bypass the extremely tanky defenses that the bosses have, especially when wave 1 bosses are levitating. His Freeze Joker will also make Globated Crush Plus deal 0 damage and prevent the Brave gains when the bosses are levitating. The only drawback there as well is that his Freeze Joker is unframed, so you do have to be careful not to let it get displaced on wave 2. Lastly, in terms of call abilities, if you do need additional help landing debuffs depending on the party setup that you bring, Ferris Call is very good because it lands 5-frame debuffs twice, once per call. Immediate Lion LD debuff also lands 4-frame debuffs per enemy, so that will actually uptick the orb on wave 1, and he can actually gravity shave any Brave to 0 from the LD call. On top of that, of course, he also has the turn deletion as well. If you didn't bring Caius in main party, Caius as an LD call is quite useful for the number of debuffs that it lands, and it also lands the very useful Doom debuff as well. Lastly, Tidus lands 3 frame debuffs per enemy, so while it can't uptick the orb on wave 1, it still fills up quite a number of debuff slots with frame debuffs, which is quite useful for wave 2. I didn't bring any of those because with this party setup, the main party can comfortably do all the debuffing that I need, so instead I'm using call abilities that helps to supplement the damage at the later parts of the fight. So that's it for this run. Hope that the video has been helpful, and if you enjoyed the content, do leave a like, comment and subscribe. It really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next Lufenia fight. Bye!